Ambitious Dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of DentistMetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. One of my favorite quotes by Benjamin Franklin is when he says, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." It's so true and applies to so many areas of our lives, particularly when it comes to your dental practice. And yet, time and time again, when I talk with owners who are struggling to grow their practice, it almost always comes back to a lack of a proper plan. While I'm a huge fan of taking action, which is just essential, a solid strategic plan can make all the difference, especially when you're acquiring or starting a practice or just trying to get a practice out of a funk. So today, I'm really excited to share my conversation with John Cotton, founder of Dental Team Performance. He's helped hundreds of new and veteran practice owners alike create and execute their strategic plan. We dive deep into what makes a strategic plan so powerful and why you need one regardless of whether you're just starting out or looking to grow. So here is just some of what you'll learn about today. How to get started with your first strategic plan, why you need a strategic plan, especially if you don't have the time, the BAM method to increase team morale, how to establish an effective employee bonus system, and finally, the importance of public accountability and how to implement it inside of your practice. So at the end of the episode, you'll find out where you can get access to Chapter 4, Case Acceptance to Completion of John's book, How to Grow Your Dental Practice in the New Economy. You really don't want to miss it. So be sure to listen all the way through the entire interview to get access to that bonus. Now here's my interview with John Cotton. Hello, ambitious dentists. Today I have with us a very unique situation. This is going to be the 61st episode of the podcast. And to date, we've never had a snafu where we had to repeat an interview with a guest because we had a technical issue. We actually had that occur with this guest today. So this is the second time I'm welcoming him onto the podcast, but this is the first time you've actually heard him. The person I have with us is Mr. John Cotton, the founder, creator of Dental Team Performance, as well as a really great guy. He has a super interesting way of thinking about the business of dentistry that I think is just missed a lot in today's really consulting environment in dental practices. He practices from what's called a strategic management position, which is something that people may, you may be able to connect those two words, strategic and management, but you may not realize that there's actually like a whole philosophy. There's a whole, a way of thinking discipline about strategic management that has actually been studied. And there's, college courses and theses and all these things that are created around specifically strategic management. And in dental practices, it seems like that is always just kind of getting swept under the rug. So I'm really interested to be able to have this conversation come to you guys about how to strategically manage a dental practice. So Mr. John Cotton, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Jonathan. What a pleasure. We're looking forward to this second iteration of a recording. So hopefully the second time around will be the best one.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the dental industry?
Oh, man, we don't have enough time for all of that. 35 years, give or take, of working with businesses and literally starting from scratch, being a business owner myself, and became rather successful. And that's not a pat on the back. It's part of the story. And then it was asked by my peers and my colleagues what I was doing. And one thing led to giving away free advice and counsel and helping my buddies get better. And it just got bigger and bigger, and it became a second tier business. And so that just grew and grew and grew. We've since opened up other niche industries. One, of course, was with financial planning, another with community banks. We've served in the financial planning industry for over 1,000 financial planners in 44 states, 350 community bankers in 32 or 3 states, and dental practices. That's our primary niche today, simply because of government regulations and compliance issues in the financial planning and the banking world. So from the dental practices, we've probably done 1,000 strategic plans for dental practices. We've implemented close to 500 strategic plans for dentist owners, and that spans 34 states, coast to coast, from Washington State to California. I just got one in this morning from somewhere in Arizona, and then Vermont and New Hampshire. Bottom line, 34 states. So it's been an interesting world, and the core thing that we do always has been, I suspect always will be, how to create a strategic plan to optimize in a dental practice production and collections. And it isn't going to happen unless your team members want to perform, and there's an experience that patients receive consistently that want to accept, schedule, and complete the dentistry that you diagnose.
So what you're telling me is that the dentist isn't the one who controls the case acceptance in that case?
Correct. The dentist put the patient for, let's just say, 5 or 6 or 7 minutes for a prophy appointment, sometimes longer, of course, and certainly for new patients, it may be. We're delivering a strategic plan to a client, a prospective client in Beaufort, Georgia tomorrow, just north of Atlanta. We've got about 40 hours in putting the plan together. He does a good hour and a half with a new patient. Other practices trim that down to 15 minutes. Then, of course, you've got emergency patients. So, no, the team members outnumber the dentist typically 5 or 6 to 1. They have a heck of a lot bigger impact on patients' desire to want the dentistry, with all due respect to the dentist.
Yeah, that for a lot of you guys out there that are listening right now, that might be a little bit of a paradigm shift. I find that a lot of information that's out there really focuses more on what the dentist can do about it, because I think we're all, like, naturally as individuals, we're all really focused on what can I do, what can I do, what can I do. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have John on the podcast, is because that really is what his message is about, is that is not always the correct way to be thinking about it. Probably a very small percentage of the time that is the right way to be thinking about it. I guess I guess you could also take a context of it's not what you can do, but it is what you can do, get others to do for you, I guess.
Yeah, let's face it. The patient is a consumer, just like all of us on this call are, and we really do not like we do not like inconsistencies of how we feel about an organization. Well, that's not going to be dictated by what kind of furniture you have, or whether or not you have a Keurig machine out front, or a small cooler of water or soft drinks, or whatever the case may be. It's going to be about the people from the time that a patient walks in the door, every single touch point in between, including the doctor, which is highly important, don't get me wrong, but it's just a piece of the puzzle, all the way through every other touch point, from the chair, checking out, financial estimate, et cetera, till they walk out.
Absolutely. So whenever you get into this picture and you start talking to people about strategic plans, I mean, how many practices do you deal with that already have a plan in place, and how many are you the first guy they've ever actually spoken with that's trying to figure out what their strategic plan should be?
Great question. This all started with my next door neighbor, who actually bought my house and I moved next door, and over the fence on a Saturday morning. By the way, this happens to be my dentist and a very good friend of mine, Kevin Alexander. Kevin asked me a couple of business questions. This was the heat of the recession. It was October 2008. And we chit-chatted for a little bit, and he asked me some questions about how he used to talk about his practice was stagnant, and he really needed some help. He just didn't know where to go. I ended up meeting with him the next Friday simply because he's just one of the nicest guys on the planet. And we sat down in his office and chit-chatted for 5 or 10 minutes, and I asked him to show me what he measures, and then we talked about each of those measurements and the process or the results he had for the first 9 months of the year, looked at these different KPIs, key performance indicators. What is it that he was doing in order to improve them? And his answer was, I don't know. And that was for 6 of the 13 things he measures, and we just stopped there. I said, well, Kevin, probably the smartest thing you could do. You okay?
Yeah.
The smartest thing that you could do is just get with your brother-in-law. He's your CPA and his partner, largest CPA firm in the state of Alabama. Let him come over here and help you do a strategic plan. And he looked at me as honestly as he could. He said, John, what is a strategic plan? Well, I'll end that little clip right there and just say that after thousands of attendees and lectures all over the Southeast. I just got back from Columbia, South Carolina last Tuesday, Greenville, South Carolina just before that. I've got the UAB School of Dentistry Alumni Association meeting coming up next month. Out of all these thousands of attendees, I have found 3 dentists that will admit that they have a strategic plan. I've still yet to see one. So it's something that just doesn't happen in the dental industry. Everybody we see, including this guy that we're going to deliver tomorrow. This is his actual strategic plan right here. It's 9 pages. There's 40 or 50 hours put into creating 9 pages of a strategic plan. He's doing $1.4 million in collections per year. Clearly, and I'll tell you, I mean, obviously I'm not going to show you the name here, but we've, in all of our analysis and everything we know about his practice, about his team members, where he wants to go, what's holding him back, we came up with the low-hanging fruit new collections growth in the next 12 months to be between $16,040 and $24,060 per month for his practice. And I can't promise you that, but I can tell you 90% of the time we're right about that because it's just there. He's sitting on $1.2 million of unscheduled treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But he's already got $1.4 million collections practice. And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
So and again, guys, this is why I think this is interesting, is that when you're thinking about consultants, and the majority of consultants I speak with, we've had some really good ones on the podcast, but a lot of them are more process driven rather than strategically driven, I guess is the way of saying things. But they come in and they say, oh, we're not doing this, so now we need to do this, or no, we're not doing this, or so now we need to do this, or not, we're doing this way, but it'll be a little bit better if we do it that way. And I don't know if that's a reflection on the industry or if that's a reflection on the fact that that is what the perspective of the dental industry thinks a consultant should be doing. And that's the really reason I like John's method of saying, okay, it's not about what we're doing wrong. It's about what we're going to strategically plan on accomplishing over the next bit. But if you remember, John, you said earlier that the dentist isn't the one who has, a lot of the, it's not completely on the dentist for these numbers to start rising. You have to lean on the team. Right. And I get calls all the time from people saying I can't get my team members to do anything. Mm-hmm. So how do you get the team to buy in with this strategic plan?
That's another great question. So let's just say from a strategy perspective, what does the practice, where are they? What do they want to do? What's holding them back? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What's the culture of their team members? And this requires some time. It requires a few interviews, 10 to 15 minutes with a couple of 3 employees, about all it takes. A whole lot of data analysis. And with all of that, then we can create the strategy. That's between dental team performance and the CEO of the practice, the dentist owner. Now, not totally, but the owner is the CEO. The owner is the one that will make the decision if the strategy makes sense or not. Now, to your point, we've got to be able to say, okay, your strategy is not 9 pages with a bunch of numbers on it and some content that describes it and explains it. It's about getting to the point where it will turn it into the 16,000 per month or the 24,000 per month, somewhere in between. So it's about getting to the result. All right. So now we get to your question. If the team members have more of an impact than they do, because they see that more of them will engage with the patient on a day-to-day basis than the dentist does collectively. So this team buy-in, and I'll underline not just buy-in and commitment, but team buy-in and commitment. I'm not talking about hygienists or the front desk or dental assistant. I'm talking about everybody, including the doctor. Then we got to figure out how that's going to happen. So what team members don't like is for the quote unquote consultant to come in and whip out the 3-ring binder and everybody in the reception area, and for a half a day, or I've seen it literally go, I've heard of it going for literally 2 days, they go through this mind-numbing training of how to do this and how to do that. Well, here's a news flash. Most of the employees, most of the team members of dental practices know a whole lot more of what to do than most dentists will give them credit for. The problem is they aren't self-motivated to use it. Now just think of that for a second. Think about your high school football team on Friday night with football season just ending. These kids go out there and bust their hump during the week to practice and practice and practice and weight training. They go out and they kill it during the game. They may win or lose, but they put their heart, mind, and soul into it, and they don't get paid a penny. Maybe a little glory if they win the game and with some cute cheerleader. The point is, if a teenager can pull that off and be self-motivated to perform, why can't we create something kind of sort of similar like that in a dental practice? And the answer is you can. But you have to let them be a party to it. So back to the consultant, if you will, and the CEO developing the strategy. All right, now we got the strategy built. How are we going to get it implemented? Well, and that's going to go not from top down with the CEO, but bottom up with the team members, and let them be a part of it. Now, I might know 95% of how it needs to look, but I'm not going to let them know that. It's going to be their idea, and they get to build it out. And as long as it's good enough and we know that that's going to work, and we can put a protocol in writing that they have developed along with the dentist, I might add. So I'm not saying we're separating the two, church and state here. We've got CEO and then we got team members. No, the team members include the doctor. So we all coalesce and develop the protocol to improve whatever part of the strategic plan may want to focus on. So if one of the things that we were talking about earlier was case acceptance to completion. Well, clearly, it doesn't take a consultant to tell any dentist that that's where the biggest the financial opportunity is, because a case is worth a whole lot more than a new patient, even lifetime value, certainly more than a pro fee appointment. And you've already got the patients coming in the office day in and day out for a new patient exam. You got emergencies and you got a boatload of pro fees, I hope. So you got them coming in. So it's not like you got to go spend money on getting patients to come in. They're already coming in. And the biggest clue is to go look at that unscheduled treatment report. So that's going to tell you case completion is a big one. I'm not saying it's the only one, but that's a big one. So in building out these protocols with the team, with the doctor, and then we put all of that in writing, give it back to the dentist for the dentist to approve it, starting there. Then we send it back down to the team members for them to approve it. And when everybody's bobbing their head up and down, we're done. We've got the protocol in place. That is critically important. Now, they've bought into that, and they can't say they didn't understand it because we just put it in writing, and they love that because team members tell us very frequently, we have been talking and we love this idea that you're putting this in writing because it holds the dentist accountable. I'll hear the exact same thing from the dentist about the team 5 minutes later. So fine with me, don't care. It's buy-in, it's commitment, it's accountability, protocols in place. All the skills training that goes on with a lot of different trainers and different programs, I'm fine with that. It's just that you can only train somebody so much. If they aren't going to use it, then why go through the process? All we want to do is move the case completion numbers. So if the protocol is attached to moving those numbers, then we're good to go. We've literally been in practices where we did zero training. And if we do, it's usually just enough to round off the edges and clean up a few rough spots. It's not about training people on what they've already heard a zillion times in CE meetings and so forth and so on. That's how we get the buy-in and the commitment.
And again, that's a really, really good way of getting the team involved in that entire process. I have this kind of financial theory that the profitability in dental practices come from just a few different areas. One of the big ones is case acceptance. So, your whole message really resonates with that.
It's hard work, Jonathan, on the front end. It's just that's what we do, and we've done it thousands of times. And there is no one methodology for one practice. We've had literally two practices in the same condo complex. There's a wall that separates, and one was a $600,000 per year production practice, taking every PPO on the planet, and this is in a fairly respectable zip code. I'll just leave it at that. Next door is a $1.3 million fee-for-service practice that has more new patients than they can say grace over, but they've both been in practice the same period of time. Now, the practice on the left is doing $600,000. There's nothing but a bunch of excuses. Our patients can't afford the dentistry. We got all the PPOs. We got this. We got that. We got this, that. But the practice next door is doing twice as much, and there are a bunch of happy campers there. What's the difference? One kind of gets it, and the other one doesn't. Now, that one on the right also has one of our strategic plans.
So if there's someone out there that's listening right now, and they don't have a strategic plan, what would you recommend them do?
Well, I guess big picture, I can't imagine running a sandwich shop without a strategic plan. There's only so much time in a day. There's only so much talent that you have, human resources. And there's only so much money you got to invest in your practice. And here we're talking to Mr. Van Horn, Mr. CPA. You know the numbers. You know what the margin income is. You know their line item expenses. And I get all that too, but you're the guru. So what to say to a dentist? I don't care if you're a startup or if you're 66 years old or 63 years old, and you're thinking about transitioning. Do you want an associate? Do you want to sell it? What are you going to get for it? What can you do to optimize the sell price? I just dealt with one 2 weeks ago. The dentist is 64 or 5, wants to sell it. We've done a complimentary evaluation. They do not put treatment plans in the computer. Everything is still charts and files, and you don't see much of that nowadays. I'll tell you 5 or 6 years ago we did. But nevertheless, this is a small town. This guy owns this town. And they're doing, I don't know, 750, I can't remember exactly, 750 of annual collections. There's no reason that thing can't get to 900 or 950 in 12 or 18 months. That has a profound impact on the value of that practice. I've seen situations like that where the valuation is done based on the average of the last 3 years of collections. And I can tell you on more than several occasions where we've got the valuation stripped of the prior 2 years, and but the valuation and the sell price is based off just that last year. Well, that's a big difference if you're talking about 900,000 instead of 750, or 900 plus 750 plus 750 divided by 3 to get the average. So whether it's a transition situation or potentially a transition situation or a startup, it really doesn't matter. Everything in between. I just can't imagine if you want to optimize the value that you're getting, not just the income now, but the equity that you're building in your practice. There's got to be a plan for it. And whether we do it or somebody else does, maybe you do it, Jonathan, there ought to be a strategic plan.
So we have a lot of people that, I'm getting a little bit of a reverb on me, so I thought I'd pause between because I'm getting distracted by my own voice. So we have a lot of people that are listening in that are going to be a practice owner in the near future that may not be a practice owner right now. For those type of people, whenever they say acquiring a practice, should they have a strategic plan when they acquire the practice, or should they go with that whole mindset of let's not rock the boat for 6 months?
I would highly recommend, and I don't care whether it's us or you or somebody else, I would highly recommend they have at least a framework of the key things that they need to be paying attention to. That yes, if as soon as they hire the first person, they build out some protocols that are pertinent to those things. Not just a protocol to have a protocol. I'm not talking about protocols to take out the trash and clean the instruments. I'm talking about production collections protocols. I'm talking about what goes on with that patient, because if you're gonna go spend 20 grand, 50 grand, or whatever on your marketing to get new patients to come into a practice, or back up, to get the telephone to ring, because that's all marketing does, then you got to convert. And it's unbelievable how many incoming telephone calls happen day in and day out on probably the vast majority of the folks listening to this podcast. But have no idea what the conversion rate is of that. But yet that's like step one. And if you aren't focused on that, then guess what? Nobody in the practice is going to focus on it. So it goes back to what are the key things that you need to pay attention to. For sure, a brand spanking new practice, someone that's on this call that's going to graduate from dental school this coming May, and they're going to go out and start. They're going to go build a practice out of the ground, a de novo practice. They've got to know what the heck they ought to be measuring. Otherwise, their time, talent, and treasure is going to be wasted.
What about for the acquiring? And let's make this a little bit more precise. What, in terms of like length of time for strategic plans, how long should a strategic plan be going? Because you're talking about, making sure that they're converting their phone calls and that being a priority. What point should they be revisiting those plans to be looking forward in the near future or in the future?
How often should you do a strategic plan?
So frequency.
How often do you do your taxes?
Once a year, hopefully.
Okay. Same answer. So you have to re-up again. I don't care whether you do it yourself, but you need to sit down and preferably September, no later than September, and start planning for 2017. Well, everybody on this call is already in December, so you're really looking at February implementation of a strategic plan right now. And then get on track annually. If you want to change it to a fiscal strategic plan year, and it goes from April to March, fine. It doesn't matter. Just do it every 12 months, and you'll be glad you did, because the sustainability of the increase in production is there. You don't want it to go away. So if you can go from 100,000 a month to 120,000 a month, or 115,000 a month, or 130,000 a month, then that's going to make a bunch of people happy in a hurry. But 4 months later, if you take your foot off the gas and you aren't paying attention to protocols and the accountability isn't there, that your team members want, by the way, they want this to happen, then that 30,000 increase or 20,000 increase will drop down to 50% of what you got. And that's just ridiculous. You're just throwing money down a rat hole. Or you're losing it. So you want to keep that strategic plan current on an annual basis.
And so, a lot of doctors, again, I was telling you earlier, like I get these phone calls from doctors saying, I can't get my team to do anything. I also get the phone calls saying, I'm working my butt off every day trying to do dentistry. Whenever I get home at night, it's a struggle just to check my email and nonetheless come up with a big strategic plan and figure out what to do to go forward with things. So, you were talking about doing something once a year. Is there any recommendations you have for people to how to be able to remember to do that every year? It's kind of like telling to you and I as being business owners as well. For us, that's a little bit like telling us to remember to breathe every once in a while, but for other people that that they're busy, we have the privilege to be able to work in be able to work on the business as well as in the business in our industries. But in dental practices, they have to, the dentist typically is the main breadwinner inside of that practice. And, I use the quote all the time that the main strength of the business owner is the biggest weakness at the same time. And for, dental practice owners, the big strength and the money comes from the fact that they're producing, but that's also a weakness because that means they don't have time to do anything else.
Well,
so what do you have to say about
that? The answer is, first of all, I've never seen a dentist do his or her own strategic plan. And the three people that raised their hands, they happen to be larger practices where they had let's just say a VP of operations. And I'm not talking about your typical office manager. I'm talking about somebody that gets it. They've got a degree in business administration, perhaps accounting. Maybe they've gotten their CPA involved. So I've never seen a dentist really create their own strategic plan. It's not their knowledge base. I can't do dentistry. So bottom line is you have to outsource it. If you want to get it done and get it done right with somebody that has expertise. I mean, I wouldn't pull my own tooth. I wouldn't try to put a veneer on. I wouldn't try to do a crown. I couldn't get number 3 up here, which I had done not long ago. So I can't do what they do. They can't do what you do, Jonathan. You're a CPA. You specialize in this and you keep up with everything. Well, it's kind of
try sometimes.
Planning. It is definitely a niche. And if you need somebody to do some training, what are you going to do? You're going to try to do it yourself? No, you'll call somebody and have them come in and do some training. If you need them to help you train you on how to use your Dentrix or Revenue Well or EagleSoft or what have you, you don't do that. So this is one of those things. If you want to grow your practice, you invest a little bit of money, but the return on investment is extraordinarily high. No different than it is for engaging you to make sure that they don't have to get a letter from the Internal Revenue Service, one of those bad boy letters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So to circle back again, I had one of those fleeting questions in my head that I wanted to get out there before I forgot. We were talking about whenever somebody's acquiring a practice specifically, and if they have prior in their acquisition they know it's a done deal, it's gonna happen. They're in there the first few weeks. They understand what's going on. When would you tell someone to start looking into utilizing someone like yourself for a strategic plan, and specifically that where they're acquiring a practice? And let's even say it's whenever someone's just coming out of state, coming in, they didn't even work as an associate in a practice. They're just coming in and buying a practice, and then they're the owner. And the old guy might still be there a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll give you two real quick examples. One is if as you said, the old guy is still there. Be careful with that. My 65th birthday is coming up.
Old guy as in the guy that was there prior, compared to the new guy.
Let's just say,
relative, old versus new.
The guy that started the practice is now selling it to this young whippersnapper. But yet the dentist wants to hang around because, he or she has had all these patient relationships all these years, all of these team members. The last thing that the newbie wants to have happen is for the team members to go scattershot and go to other practices. So it's in the purchaser's best interest to have the dentist hang around for a while. So that's step one. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to just walk in and then he or she's out the door if you can help it. Now, under those circumstances, when to come in and do a strategic plan? Probably a month or so later, once the new person at least has their feet wet, they understand what everybody's first name is in the practice, and they know a little bit about it. And then if the other scenario is where you buy it and the dentist heads to the mountains or the beach and they're done. Maybe they hang out for another week or so just to clean up some bigger cases. And I've seen that all over the place. Mm-hmm. And they get their associate compensation for that. And then they're gone immediately because the newbie is like on a raft in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific with no rudder and no sail at that point. They have no idea what to expect tomorrow. They may assume everything's going to be hunky-dory. But now you've paid all this money for this practice, maybe real estate included, and then, I mean, you talk about having to take some Pepto-Bismol. I would be freaking out if I had spent that kind of money for a practice, and I don't really even know what to worry about. And if I did, I'd be chugging that stuff because it would drive you crazy. So somehow you need to settle down the Indians, so to speak, let them be a part of the growing of this or of building it moving forward without trying to. One thing, Dennis, if I could say this, and I don't mean with any disrespect here, if Dennis could try to stay away from talking about production and collections, that would do wonders for their practice. Now, I know that's what you want to do, business to business here. I know that, face to face, business owner to business owner. But team members making anywhere from $12 an hour to $30 or $40 an hour really don't, well, they just feel like that kind of talk is all about money. It's all about money. It's all about getting a new car. It's about getting the beach house. It's about getting the lake house. It's about going out to play golf. It's about joining all of those things, or vacations to Europe. All of those things really tick off the team members. So when you're building out your strategic plan, you're going to want to get the numbers, the improvement numbers, focused from the team's perspective on whatever the key performance indicator or key production driver it is that you're working on. Now, it would be designed so that it's definitely going to drive production and collections, but you don't go down that path with the team. So let's just say if it was case completion and you're doing, pick a number, 30 cases per month, and all you want the team members to do is get it from 30 up. That's all they need to focus on. They don't need to know anything else about that financially. So those would be the two scenarios with regard to buying a practice. Whether the doc is going to leave in a hurry or whether the doc's going to hang around.
Really good information, and you bring a really good point, because I talk to these guys all the time. Like I have this chat window on my website, and people will come in and they'll just talk to me for like an hour about their buying a practice, and they've got all these numbers they're looking at. They're just asking me questions about things, and I'm just helping them out with that. And I should probably charge for that. Every time I say something like, by the way, this is free advice, not professional paid advice, so take it for what it's worth, from some guy on the internet in an internet box on a website. So don't go and sue me if something happens on this. But we get really consumed whenever we're preparing for these transitions and acquisitions, and it's all numbers based. And so you think that we're going to lead by the numbers when we get in there. And so we come in, we're just, we unleash the numbers on the team. And we've heard from, the talking heads, or we've heard from the hive mind that this is what we need to do. We need to talk about this, like this, there's a common term. I don't know who started it, but the bare ass minimum, the BAM and dental practices. Right. You got to get done every day. And, like you said, these assistants that make, if they're lucky, 24 grand a year, and you're telling them we got to do $8,000 every day. That's our minimum for the day.
Right. And
they sit there and they think, so in 3 days, we completely pay off my salary for the year. And there's only 7 people that work here. So we'll say on average 7 weeks, and we pay off everybody that works here but the doctor. And so that means 45 weeks out of the year. They don't think about the fact that there's two vacation holiday weeks and probably 2 vacation weeks, and the fact that there's weekends and things like that. But they think 45 weeks out of the year, he's getting pure profit on that.
Right.
And so that's all they think about. They internalize it, because we all internalize these things, right?
Sure.
And they just completely lose it so fast. When I first got into trying to understand the consulting world in the dental industry, and I saw that was the first thing I said, what in the heck are people doing that for? But it's so rampant. It's so rampant. And I've consultants.
It's not that everybody in the practice can't go into the software and see what the production is. They know that, but you sure don't need to tout it. They don't really care how much the dentist makes, as long as they are a party to it. So that's where this bare ass minimum thing or production or collection bonus, if you're going to base it on that, then you're always telling them about production and collections.
Mm-hmm.
And you're pushing and you want them to do better because they make more money, but they already know that it's just in their face. So when we create a strategic plan, we're still going for optimizing production and collections, but the team members aren't rewarded off of that. They're going to be rewarded off of moving their key production drivers, and it just obfuscates this whole mindset of the doctors making too much money. They really don't care. Show me a practice where the team members can make $200, $300, $400, $500 more per month, and the dentist makes $25,000 more per month, and I'll show you a bunch of happy team members that don't really give a rip how much the dentist is making. It's just you got to find a way to get them in that game, but the ROI's got to be significant back to the doctor.
And, you know, it's really funny because, and there's other industries as well that are shifting towards this, and this is effectively a performance-based. When you say if they're being rewarded for doing things, that's a performance-based job. Like the better job you do, the more we can compensate you. And other industries are doing this. Technology companies are doing this. Other service businesses are doing this. But nobody in the dental industry seems to understand this. And I get this question a lot from practice owners: is I want a bonus system because I pay this person $12 an hour and I'm making $250 a year, and I feel bad because I'm only paying them $12 and they have a hard job, and I want to pay them more. How do I pay them more? Performance-based incentives are a great way to do things. But to touch on another point real quick, you mentioned the fact they want to be a part of something, and that's something that, again, whenever I was in college, I don't have an MBA, but my master's degree was just there was only 2 courses that were different from having an MBA. So I'd have strategic management, organizational behavior, and all those different things that go into having an MBA. And one of the things I distinctly remember thinking was just such flu, like it was all willy-nilly and didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, was whenever they talk about the differences in generations of how they react to things in the work environment. And what you're speaking about there is something that I find very different, especially in the dental industry, because there's usually a segment of the older generations as well as the younger generations, and those two people are motivated by very different things. Someone that is in the older generation seems to be that they were there to do their job and get their job done and do it well. And a lot of the younger generation nowadays, they are more apt to want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of something. It's not their responsibility, and they want to just come in and do something with the business, right? They want to be a part of something neat. Sure. And so, if you can align the team around something like that, then you can really position that as being to both of those, to being do the job as well as be a part of something that we're doing here.
Absolutely. And so to your point, being a part of something also means that there's some gratification. Mm-hmm. It feels good. We win, whatever that may mean. And so that kind of gets back to building out the strategic plan so that you got all of those in the bucket, so to speak. And whoever is motivated by whatever, then they're going to go down that path. And I guess it sounds very theoretical, but when you have a fixed, forget the production and collections for a moment, if you can back into the math and figure out how to, let's just say, well, I'll go back to case completion. I used the example earlier. Let's say the current number of cases being completed for practice is 30 per month, and that's an average of, say, 6 months worth. So we know 30 is the number. If we can build out multiple levels of incentives for that so that they don't just win, it's not a yes or no win, it's which level do we win on. And then everybody, and they help create the protocol to make that happen, then what do you think is going to happen the vast majority of the time? Oh, sure, once in a while you'll have somebody that pushes back a little bit, but you know who polices them and holds them accountable? The rest of the team, not the doctor. So the doctor gets to go do dentistry and And frankly, we've set up in our practices, we set up team representatives, somebody at the front and somebody in the back. It's not uncommon to have an office manager in a practice, but there's no representation in the back. It's at the front. And so they're the office manager doing business things, or running down the insurance or what have you, or making sure such and such is done, or keeping the QuickBooks right for you. But there's no representation in the back. It's not uncommon for us to designate a dental assistant and a hygienist. It doesn't matter. All of that is to delegate things that the dentist shouldn't have to be doing in the first place. So the dentist can do what they're supposed to be doing. And then those team representatives work together, and you've got internal accountability, and then they hit these different levels on these different incentives. We've had practices that have 4 separate incentive plans we've created for them. It doesn't matter as long as the ROI is, say, 10 to 1 or better collectively. So if the whole team makes $1, the doc gets 10. I don't know what's wrong with that. And then they just blow it up, and that's part of what makes it happen.
Why go out and pay, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for marketing whenever you could just pay your team that, similar money to give you better returns?
If it gets allocated to indeed make the numbers go up, yes, absolutely. But you shouldn't pay if it doesn't happen. I agree with that all day long. I'll make one other comment about that. We will have practices say, well, John, if we're going to do this bonus plan, what do we do about raises? Well, first of all, it has nothing to do with raises. It's not, you aren't shifting money. What you're doing is growing your practice rapidly and sustainably. And yeah, there ought to be an investment for that, because you aren't going to get there without it. Now, to answer the thing about the raises, I've had this question happen literally, hundreds of times. Well, what do we do about the raises? What do we do about the raises? My honest opinion, that and I'm saying this publicly now, but certainly one-on-one with closed doors, I've said many times, look, frame it this way with your team. We're gonna run hard on the implementing our strategic plan, and if somebody says, well, what about raises? We're going to address that in 90 days. Well, in 90 days, preferably, they are up a couple of $300 each per month in income, in gross. Well, back into what a raise would generate if it's a 2 or 3% raise. It won't come close to that. So the dentist will go back with a little bit of our coaching and say, all right, which do you want? Do you want the 2 or 3% raise, or do you want to keep the bonus plan we just put in place? Invariably, they're going to say, we want the bonus plan. And he does the math for them. So salary increases or hourly rate increases vanish back to performance improvements. I've never, to the best of my knowledge, had a team member say, no, I want the 2 or 3% raise. Doctor can't justify it.
Sure.
None of them justify it. Well, now they do with regard to the incentive, because an incentive is just a percentage basically of the growth.
Love it. Love it. Well, John, you've been a wealth of information. I appreciate you being a friend of the podcast and being a friend of ours. So if anyone out there has any questions for you, or wants to know a little bit more about strategic management, how it works with dental practices, see some of your results. And by the way, one of the things I really like about John's company is he actually has on his website, we've worked with this many practices, and this is our average return for all of the practices we've ever worked with. The average return was up in the mid 20%. And so it's basically if you've got $1 million practice, that means the average return for that $1 million practice for implementing things like this is $250,000 a year, which is amazing.
Well, my local dental CPA is the one that did the math. I didn't, and the number is 23.38% increase in collections in 12 months.
Fantastic. Well, if anybody has any other questions about you, any questions for you, what's a great way for them to be able to learn more about you, or possibly even reach out?
I'd say just go to our website first and foremost and get to know us a little bit and noodle around. We have our own videos and interviews in the website, and you'll see some of our clients' interviews and what have you. So it's a good way to hear what they've said. And they're not short. They're not 10 or 15 minutes. It's a good 30 or 45-minute interview with them. And then there's other information on the website. Certainly, that would be a good place to start. I'm kind of a wide open guy. I sleep about 3 or 4 hours a night, and that's fine with me. I love what we do. So you can certainly email me at john@whydtp.com, WHYDTP.com, or pick up the phone and call my direct line at 205-949-8850, 205-949-8850. Love to chat with you. I don't have a chat button on my website like you do, but don't mind at all chit-chatting with Dennis. We probably do 3 or 4 or 5 of those calls a day here at the office in Birmingham.
Perfect. Well, John, thanks again for your time. Guys, if you're listening to this, you got any value out of it, please do me a favor. Shoot John an email or give him a phone call and just say thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your time with him. Have him share his time with us, because, again, this isn't the first time he's done it. This is the second time he's done it. So he actually gave you twice as much time than you actually are hearing. So, guys, again, do me a favor and do that for me if you would. So, John, thanks again for coming out today, and have a great day.
Jonathan, thank you very much. Enjoy it. Take care.
A special thanks to John for sharing his insights on the power of strategic plans. If you've been holding out on making one, there's no better time to start than now. It's really easy to say, yeah, I should have one. But information without action does not help your practice grow. Use the last few weeks of 2016 to make this happen. So to help you out, John shared Chapter 4, Case Acceptance to Completion, of his book, How to Grow Your Dental Practice in the New Economy. I know that you're going to find it to be valuable. So to get that bonus, simply text PRACTICE to 33444. Again, that's PRACTICE to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the U.S. You'll also receive updates on the latest episodes of Start Your Dental Practice, helpful tips for owning and running a practice, and promotional opportunities direct to your inbox. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultant that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you like the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.